For those of you who'd like access to this content, follow the link in the description box, visit our Patreon page, and subscribe to the Black Kluge tier. For a mere $5 a month, you get access to the alternate Sunday episodes you've been missing, only available on Patreon, as well as the weekly Tuesday episodes. But wait, there's more. If you subscribe to the Black Kluge tier, you'll also get 2 weeks advance notice to our Thursday sessions. And if you needed any more incentive, when we have bonus episodes, Patreon is the place where you're going to find them. Also, don't forget to check out Teepublic for our great swag. The link is also in the aforementioned description.
It was like being in a cult, like she had to dye her hair black too, everybody had to have that jet black hair and a pompadour, her hair was all blown up. It was almost like she walked around in a costume while she was with Elvis.
And I go, boy, she looks good. What a waste of time I'm here. She should be in bed with me right now. I said, yeah, like, Sal, you don't look you look odd. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is. I guess thanks for sending me to school with them. Motherfuckers. Now you see what I'm going through. The bush.
Right.
But how do you paint that? And that's when I'm in the middle of painting. And, when I hooked her up with Clarence Clemens, the saxophone player from the E Street Band. She would have been.
You didn't hook me up.
She would have been the Yoko. She would have been the Yoko of the E Street Band. And I say, this is the greatest living songwriter right now. That's it. And I'll tell you, I'm making another prediction. I'm pretty good on predicting ever since I predicted that we'd be in quarantine for years and years, not just, a few weeks. TV series. Chucky the puppet, the doll that comes to life and terrorizes families.
I saw that preview and I was like, well, how long can that last?
She's okay with you seeing heterosexuality, just not gay people. And that's what I take issue with too. I don't do sexual stuff in front of my kid.
And how embarrassing. Like, she's at a play. You guys better laugh at me or I'll stab you and behead you. I will kill you. I'm going to bed without dessert tonight. It's going to be pretty stiff penalty.
It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's hot. I just burned my mouth. Dry oatmeal. I need...
What? Oh.
On it. Where you could just put them in your ear and, like, they'd be Bluetooth or something. So we feel pretty honored by that. Violent J told Wolfie some of the ideas he suggested to Sarah to do on her OnlyFans. This is part of the exclusive.
I'm constantly.
Wow.
I'm constantly. I'm constantly fucking ideas. And when I go through Instagram,
out of control.
and I see how these doing some dope shit that's.
Wait a second. Wait. What's going on here? What's going on? Is somebody hitting a button or something?
Welcome, ladies and gents, to QF, a podcast about Howard Stern. I'm your host, Phil Moore, a.k.a. Jim Fix, and with me is Mr. Len Young. How are you tonight, sir?
Well, I've been better. I mean, it's been a rough week here. Last night was bad. I was only getting over the death of Cabby, and then OJ died, and I was devastated about OJ. And then I see this Alicia Jordana clip that's blowing up everywhere, and that was depressing as well.
Well,
so
it's it always happens in threes.
Yeah.
Well, the funny, we were not going to cover it. We leave that for lesser, gutter snipe fucking Stern podcast to, make it an entire theme, that grifting piece of shit and whatever she set up to, get more credit to herself and then lie about her age constantly. The Elisa Jordana thing, that happened when I stopped listening to the show. So early 2010s, like 11, whatever, Artie was gone. And then I just sort of half-assedly, she's with Benji, she's a girlfriend. All I needed to hear was she was with Benji to know that there was something wrong with her.
Well, yeah, and I think it's sad because when she married Andy Dick, I thought the chaos of her life would be behind her and she would live happily ever after. I mean, come on. And I don't want to victim blame here. And I think what happened to her is awful. But at some point, you have to go back in time and think, well, why am I in this position in the first place? How did I get here?
Sure.
So it's a bit like if you're walking down Las Ramblas in Barcelona with a wallet out of your back pocket and giving out then that you got pickpocketed, or there is while the act itself is awful of someone stealing from you, you did put yourself in a certain position in the first place. So look, it's horrible. And then cabbie and then all this stuff. It's we need some positives here. So hopefully what you have for me, which is a bit of I've never heard this. Hopefully this is going to put me in a good mood.
I haven't figured out a title for this. I was thinking slippery when wet, or maybe, a 79 degrees Fahrenheit or some shit, because we're covering Howard Stern's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction speech of Bon Jovi that he did in 2018. And we've got the speech. Now, this is the thing. It's professionally filmed. Obviously, there's the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame official version, which is on YouTube, and you can watch it. And this one runs almost the exact same length of time. But when they broadcast it originally on HBO, I'm not sure why HBO did. Maybe they've always had the contract for it, but or they were cheap as chips, and that's why they went for it. Jan Wenner's not selling massive amounts of Rolling Stone anymore, and he runs the Hall of Fame, or he did anyway at one point, before he started saying how he didn't think black artists deserved to be in it. Quincy Jones was saying, "Thank God, no one's talking about my interview anymore." There's a professionally filmed one, but then for the broadcast they edited it to the point where he started bitching about it on the air. Like, basically they cut out they should have cut his entire fucking speech out. It should have just been, "Ladies and gentlemen, Bon Jovi." But he did 13 something minutes of dribble. And it's what happened. So they've got that filmed, and now the official one is released on the YouTube channel. But there was a person who attended on the balcony here, as you can see from the perspective, with her phone. The audio is just about as good, and she closes in. She does the digital zoom, so you're going to get the full gist of it. The reason, guys, why I chose this instead of the official version is twofold. Number one, the official one might just get flagged, and we won't be able to put it on YouTube, or people won't be able to see it. But then the other thing is, if there's any lulls, and I know there are, where jokes fly flat, in the real broadcast, you're going to hear some canned laughter to cover it up. With this one, what you see, and you see a lot, is what you get. So first off, let's go with Bon Jovi. Is there anybody first of all, I don't give a fuck about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't think anybody really does who cares about music.
Well, it's not a thing here.
No.
It's never been. No one ever talks about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here. I don't think it's taken seriously by anyone here, to be honest. It's just never shown on TV, and no one cares. What about Blaze of Glory Hole? There could be a title for the episode.
Sure, why not?
No, I think I can understand like a Hall of Fame, like when you're talking about something of, something where there's a metric, where there's a measure. So you're talking about trophies and like sports. So you're talking about the Ballon d'Or and things like that. It makes sense because you have a record to say, well, Cristiano Ronaldo scored the most goals in Europe last season, or, or whatever. But when you get into something like Bon Jovi, are you going to just measure it by record sales?
Well,
because, well, that's fine. But then, does it work like that? I don't think does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame work based on record sales, or is it just this guy Jan Wenner who just decides?
Yeah, it's the guy who, quote by Howard, used to invite him to these fag parties. I wonder why. And and oh God, I'll never forget that line. And don't introduce me to your handsome boyfriend.
Oh man. Well, didn't Jan Wenner famously sacked a guy, I remember, from Rolling Stone for giving Hootie and the Blowfish a bad review?
I don't remember that. I do know that he was instrumental for, I used to enjoy Rolling Stone back in the day before, when it was, even when it was still a corporate hippie magazine, there were full-fledged articles that during the 80s, especially, that were still good. And in the 70s as well, long form interviews. It was, skewed a certain way, and they certainly did. They played their favorites, but it was still, like that Dr. Hook song on the cover of the Rolling Stone. It became famous, and it became the periodical of note. But when I was growing up, it was Select, and then Vox and Spin, and then Q. The Q is now like basically an old timers magazine. But
like Mojo,
Melody Maker, Mojo, Melody Maker, New Musical Express. Cream magazine in the States was a lot of fun. Cream was fantastic because it was really tongue in cheek. Spin magazine was good. Bob Guccione Jr. owned that. And so Rolling Stone kind of fell behind. And, when they started putting Britney Spears on the cover, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Jan Wenner, didn't he say recently that the internet should be monitored by the US government? I believe he said that, which is so preposterous.
I'll take your word for it, but I mean,
he did.
It sounded like Howard, shutting down his own site because he couldn't take the criticism.
Yeah. But like these guys are too old to be in any position of, any position of power. Now I know he's only a magazine magnate or whatever, but he also claimed that black people don't have the intelligence. What did he say? Something about black artists they're not as articulate.
Let me get the quote. It was pretty brutal. Let me see.
Yeah.
Jan Wenner. I got it here from The Guardian, although you could find it just about anywhere, guys. Asked why he didn't interview women or black musicians, Wenner responded because it was there was a book he released called The Masters, which was interviews with all, people that mostly they came through Rolling Stone. I've read tons of these in the past. They've been featured in a lot of different compendiums. So he said, it's not that they're inarticulate, although go have a deep conversation with Grace Slick or Janis Joplin. Please be my guest. Joni Mitchell was not a philosopher of rock and roll. She didn't, in my mind, meet that test. He told the Times. Of black artists, Stevie Wonder, genius, right? I suppose when you use that word as broad as masters, the fault is using that word. Maybe Marvin Gaye or Curtis Mayfield. I mean, they just didn't articulate at that level, Wenner said. And so it's just anyway, it's he got in trouble, so he just basically they took him off the board of that bullshit thing, and I think they stripped him of any kind of editorial duties.
Yeah, he strikes me as one of these. You see these every now and again. One of these gay guys who really just hates women as well, But he loves you too. He loves you too. So he's saying he thinks that there's any kind of depth there, and that you two speak to him. You two don't speak to anybody.
No,
like the lyrics don't mean anything. There's nothing there original. And yet he's saying he's discounting Prince and Stevie Wonder in favor of Bono.
Well, of course, because I don't know, whatever. He's got but they used to do the same with REM as well, and I couldn't stand it. Like REM was that band that could do no wrong, and Sonic Youth, who I like, but a little too over the top. Praise of certain artists. Yoko Ono, he was like friends with Yoko Ono infamously, and Howard used to give him shit for that. Like, come on, those albums. I know Wayne's going to say, come on, she has some good albums. Like, Wayne, I wouldn't turn her LPs into ashtrays.
She makes my skin crawl. I'll be honest with you, Yoko. She really does.
Same. And so basically the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ended up being a big like you want to be with us party or not. And there's certain artists that, like the New York Dolls, are still not inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a sin. You know how many bands are now in it that were all influenced by the New York Dolls?
Of course.
And they only had 2 albums. Like there's like Bon Jovi could sell a billion records. No one would claim they were ever influenced by Bon Jovi, or would admit to it.
Yeah. But to be honest, I can see why Bon Jovi are very popular. It's not a mystery. You can see looking at them. They have, if you look at their hits, right, their big hits, there's hooks there. You can see they're catchy, they're popular. But the reality is, have they really you wouldn't call them an important band in terms of influencing other artists. I think the problem I have with Bon Jovi personally, oh my God, look at that.
B. Arthur.
B. Arthur does look a bit like John Bon Jovi. Yeah, he is. I hate to say it, but John Bon Jovi is one of those guys now who's starting to look like a kind of an old lesbian who runs a bookshop,
Yes.
He's starting to just get that look about him. I think a lot of these guys are like Sammy Hagar. I saw Sammy Hagar recently, and he looks like an old woman who's drank heavily all her life and worked at sea or something. You know, he's just got this kind of weathered face and long hair. Cut the hair. I mean, Eddie Van Halen, I thought towards the end of his life, kind of showed how to grow old gracefully. He let his hair go grey, and he had a sharp look, and he just looked. He had a dignified look, you know, which was just kind of slightly humble. And whereas John Bon Jovi can't let it go, but he has this affected way of singing that drives me insane.
Same.
Do you know what? Do you know what?
There's that accent. It was them trying to do. I think Artie said he was the chick Springsteen.
yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
And he did that accent then, and Springsteen was the same. Springsteen used to try to sing like he was from I don't know, Nebraska or somewhere, which great album, but he's certainly not from there. And Bon Jovi being from New Jersey, I mean, they did get a massive following, and I remember at the time like they went pop. As soon as they went pop, they went through the roof. But if you don't have a front man that looks like a pretty boy, as they did, then maybe you don't get as successful.
Yeah, and I have to give them credit in that they had that initial explosion in popularity in what was it, 86, 87?
86, but that was their third, like it was their third album. So they had a couple albums that, did mediocre, they were fine, I suppose, but they were heavier. So they got with a pop producer, this guy, Bruce Fairbairn, who released some of the worst albums on the planet, who produced them. And he, and then the basically it was pop, the same way Alice Cooper had a hit with that album Trash in the late 80s, but that was like Desmond Child, co-writes and, pure pop bullshit. It doesn't compare to his earlier stuff in the slightest, but it did the job career-wise, and he needed that. So fair play to them. They made him. Not only that, John Bon Jovi, like Bon Jovi and the band, they survived the hair years, the hair band years.
I was just about to say that in the 90s they did an album with Bob Rock.
Yeah,
with the one "Keep the Faith" or whatever.
Keep the Faith, yeah, and
where they
had
did
a couple
kind of change their sound. Yeah, it really did. It was huge. I remember that. I remember my sister buying the single for that. It used to. She had. Remember, my sister bought a single by Bon Jovi that used to send me. I think it was a ballad called. Was that one Always?
Always, yeah. Or
No.
Bed of Roses or whatever.
Yeah, but it reminded me very much around that time of Aerosmith did a song for that Armageddon film, Don't Want to Miss a Thing. It's in that wheelhouse, in that kind of schmaltzy wheelhouse, kind of not my cup of tea. But again, like I said, I can totally get the popularity. I can totally see why they were popular.
Is the big prop. So what happens with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is there's some contentious bands that get, they refuse to go in. And then there's other ones. Who do we get to induct them? Like the controversy about, Lou Reed inducting Frank Zappa, and Frank Zappa, Zappa hated Lou Reed, and he hated the Velvet Underground with a red hot passion. And I don't blame him. Lou Reed's one of the biggest cocksuckers in literally and figuratively in the music industry. And it's like the Bob Dylan. I've always loved the Velvet Underground when their songs are covered by other people.
Rest in peace, Lou Reed. That was if you're looking for touching eulogies, this is the show to get. No. It's just, I'm the same about Ralph Sorella, but no, I think one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life, and I'm not kidding you, dude. This was the worst thing. Metallica did an album with Lou Reed. Oh, that is. It is. I listened to it in the house, and I was like laughing at how bad it was. Now I loved Transformer when I was a teenager, the Lou Reed album, and I do think he had some good songs. But Frank Zappa was a bit of a misanthrope. I don't think he certainly would have he hated the music industry. He hated executives, people like Jan Wenner. He would have had no respect for, because they don't actually create anything. So just to give a counterpoint, when they inducted Roy Orbison, and I mentioned this album before, In Dreams Greatest Hits, but Roy re-recorded his greatest hits because he didn't own his masters, and he wanted to make money off of his own songs. So he went in with a crack session band and released a compilation album, but people were pissed because they were expecting the original
the original songs. I think it's better than the originals actually because, updated technology, and his voice was maybe better than ever, I think.
I agree.
And but the liner notes, believe it or not, is the speech Bruce Springsteen gave at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to induct him, and it was one of the best written speeches I've ever read. And it's something about, Roy's voice was something I used to listen to the songs in the dark. And and I'd listen to crying, and at the end you say to yourself, your 13-year-old self, I'll never love another woman again, because it's that, and then you go into like Lana or something like that, and all of a sudden you go, okay, I love women again. He goes, there's only a great artist that can make you feel so many different sets of ways, and he just said, I spent the rest of my career wanting desperately to sing like Roy Orbison, except to figure only to find that no one can sing like Roy Orbison.
Yeah, I think Springsteen even references Orbison in Thunder Road. You know that Orbison singing for the lonely.
Huge fan.
He that Black and White Night concert in '80. I'm guessing it must have been around that time.
Yeah, 87, 88 or so.
Because Mystery Girl came out.
Great album.
Jeff Lynne produced that.
Anyway,
his voice was unreal. Yeah.
So they were probably looking like, who the fuck can we get to induct these shitheads? Bon Jovi. Who are we going to get? Like no one. Like you're not going to get David Coverdale. You're not going to get a contemporary. Who's CC DeVille? If you could dig up that shithead from Rat that died, maybe he'd do it. But I don't even think then, because all these hair metal bands were about themselves. Would you get Vince Neil to roll up on there with a 6-pack and go, "Hey, I remember these guys. We we fucked all of their girls after, we were the opening band," or whatever. They'd say, they have groupie tales or something. But I guess the thing was, they were connected to Howard in the 80s, specifically with Sam Kinison. If you remember, Sam was supposed to bring them in, and then he failed, and that started the whole man dude fight. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, that rings a bell. Yeah. No,
anyways,
I can't remember. Yeah.
So just the amount of dudes, like they said to each other when they were fighting with each other. And then that became like a big, Howard started feuding with Sam because he promised to bring in Bon Jovi, and he didn't. And he started calling him Bon Phony and all that shit. So it was great radio. But I mean, Bon Jovi didn't, at that point, did they give a fuck if they were on this asshole show or not? I can't hear you, Howard. I have like 16 groupies in either ear, So anyway, so we're gonna play this, and then we're gonna play the follow-up, guys, if we have enough time.
By the way, that was 1987. I was on a date with Richie Sambora. He met the hottest chick and had a threesome. That's how it all began. Thank you. I know exactly what you're saying. It sure looks like hell has frozen over. The man who never leaves home, me, Howard Stern, is in Cleveland.
First of all, I love his outfit. I think I called him ages ago Sad the Impaler.
What's he doing in Cleveland? Why is this? I'm surprised he's even showing up.
That's where the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is.
So it's a physical. Oh yes, so it's a building. Obviously,
it is a building. I confused it with something else. There's another kind of Hall of Fame that doesn't exist except virtually. I don't remember which one it is, but apparently there is a real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. So
that's in some kind of civic arena. This thing here. This is in some arena, and okay.
Yeah, so he had to, King Baby decided, I'm going to grace you with my presence. Meanwhile, he looks like an outtake from a Christopher Lee fucking Hammer film in the 70s.
Thank you. Now, another sign of the zombie apocalypse, Jan Wenner finally let Bon Jovi into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Now, of course, he's getting some like cheers because he's mentioning Bon Jovi. This is no different than going to a hockey game and saying, "Does anyone here like hockey?" Yeah,
yeah. Hello, Cleveland.
It's Scott the engineer. We have to cover that one day.
First of all, off the bat, first of all, he's reading off a teleprompter. That's really,
Yes.
even from this angle, you can see, and he's doing this move physically. I don't know whether you've noticed, where it's a sign that he's really uncomfortable, where he's kind of moving left and right, moving for his hips are going forward and back.
Yes.
He is really, really uncomfortable. And look at his hands there. They clench together. Like, this is his worst nightmare. So would be interesting to know the backstory in that. You know, clearly Howard doesn't like doing things like this because he's agoraphobic, but he's such a star fucker that he has to do this for Bon Jovi because it's all about being out in the Hamptons, and he wouldn't be able to face him again if he didn't do this, I think.
I think first of all, if you've accepted it and you're going to do it, then you got to do it. And that's what he did. But I think while he was accepting, he was thinking, oh, God, should I do this? I'm going to have to get in front of a live audience. And God knows I hate that when I've not got everything scripted. And certainly he needs a script. And it was, you know, he did have this stuff written out. I believe it wasn't, Louis C.K. helped him with the Joan Rivers eulogy, which makes, you know, perfect sense because you're not going to trust an asshole like Howard to make an impromptu speech. You'll probably do row, row, row your boat at Joan's funeral. And if you really let him go for much longer, he'll bring up like a soupy sales impression or something.
But obviously at Joan Rivers' funeral, you have to be funny.
Big time.
That was, you know, whereas at something like this, it's all about ball washing, basically, isn't it?
Yes. Like, I think I mentioned it. Hold on. Let me see if I can, find this real quick. I'm going to put this through. Okay. Okay. Red buttons. Okay. At Sid Caesar. Okay. Here it is. I can play a little of this. It's at Sid Caesar's 80th birthday party.
Ladies and gentlemen, no introduction.
Okay.
When the phone rang, my butler, who was also my son, said, Mr. Buttons, Pennsylvania.
Oh, so you say, so he used to do a thing called what was it in the grocery? Just so and so never got a dinner. He'd go like Sophia, like if it was an Italian person like Frank Sinatra, he'd bring up all famous Italians. He'd go, why are we giving Frank Sinatra a dinner when all these other people, famous Italians, never got a dinner? Sophia Loren's new baby who looked up at Sophia and said, "Gee, is that all for me?" This was a take on it. He goes. I think the story is, anytime you ask for me, I'll be there. One sec, let me turn this down. Anytime you ask for me, I'll be there. You just call and I'll be there. And then he starts listing all these places where he was.
I am there. In Transylvania, at a midnight minion of Jewish Orthodox vampires. Who will not suck a neck unless they salt it first.
Anyway, I'll let you watch that on your own. It's one of the funniest fucking things you've ever seen.
That's a lifetime of expertise there. Whereas then we go back to this streak of piss. And this guy is not Peter O'Toole. You know what I mean? No. He's the direct opposite.
He'd be Peter O'Toole. Do you remember the SCTV sketch where it wasn't Peter O'Toole, Richard Harris, when Dave Thomas did that impression of Richard Harris singing MacArthur Park, and but he's mostly dancing, and it's like a remix, a disco version, and at the end someone throws a brick at him.
It's a very divisive song, to be fair. It's my least favorite Jimmy Webb one.
Anyway, so imagine a guy like this who's never been famous for being off. Like, if you look at, we've talked about it ad nauseum, all those Letterman appearances, all those like Leno appearances, and never once did I bust my gut laughing at Howard. Never once.
No, yeah, we've talked about this before. I got to the point where, and I've said this on this show before, I'll never forget watching Comedians in Cars with my wife. I'll never forget it. She
Yes.
watched about 2 or 3 minutes and turned to me and looked at me and said, do you think this
is the
funny?
guy?
This is the guy? This is the guy that you've been listening to for years? You know, and I went, yeah. And she's like, you know,
you could
every pod has a lid.
How did you explain it away?
My excuse at the time, which I think it holds, which is, look, the show isn't about him. He's actually the worst part of it. It's all about the supporting cast, and which is true. I mean, it was all about everyone that's in it, that was in its orbit. Now, obviously, like as those layers have shed over the years, you're left with this miserable, shriveled kernel of toxicity that we're looking at here, and it's just horrific. And that's when he's on his own. When he has he has a script here, but when he's just freewheeling or just he's standing there, you really do see the lack of charm, the lack of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's all laid bare.
No charisma, nothing.
No, nothing.
No.
Way to go, John, Jan, whatever the fuck your name is. Anyway, Jan, you did it. You finally gave this fantastic band their due. Now, for those of you who don't know, Jan is the man in charge, but I'm not sure why. This guy doesn't play a musical instrument.
Nope.
He doesn't have a band.
Nope.
But he did start a great magazine, Rolling Stone. Yeah. And now it's the size of a pamphlet. What a business plan. Way to go. I read it in about 30 seconds backstage.
Good job.
Now,
That would be the first time he read in the last 30 years. My favorite is that the person who's filming it is she's acting as if she's having a conversation with him.
Yeah.
You know, like this call and response, you know, he doesn't play an instrument.
Yup. Yep. Sure.
Neither does Howard.
No. He has no discernible talent.
Well, no, that's the irony. Like, he wants to be so desperately attached to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as like a DJ, like Alan Freed was, or whoever else, like, you know, I don't know, Dick Clark. But there's no one that did less for music than Howard.
Absolutely nothing. And I would say, look, he has always been to me the a really negative, or representative of a really negative stereotypical attitude, which is all about, if you're not getting paid, you shouldn't be doing it. And why would you take a risk? Like, so say for example, it's like Pink Floyd were doing The Wall in 1979. You say, why are you doing that? Why don't you just do Wish You Were Here part
Again.
2? Again, it was huge. Make more money, you know. This, at the very core of Howard's psyche and his attitude, is something that's completely diametrically opposed to creativity and you know, anything that genuinely enriches people's lives. Whereas he has always been concerned with what lines my pocket, what will make me more money, what can I sell. The quality of the output is never of a concern to him. So in terms of music and all that type of thing, he just has it's none of his business. And I heard recently that he's like picking up a guitar and doing, as we've heard before, he's still doing it. It's the only thing he knows, which is the opening bars of Fragile by Yes.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, he picks up a guitar and the strings are rusty and it's out of tune because it hasn't been even looked at in years. You know what I mean?
They're disintegrating from years of like you know, like humidity, whatever.
Well, you posted a picture of his guitars in the studio. I tried to zoom in, but the quality isn't there. But they looked like Epiphones that were the cheap ones, cheaper Gibsons, and they're literally ones that are there purely for visual, you know.
That's what they are. Like his really expensive guitars, or like the signed guitars or whatever he got, is up on a wall somewhere. If he's broadcasting from home, he decided, I'm going to get the, you know, the like the Parker Brothers Les Paul. I'm going to get the Dollarama, Fender Telecaster, and I'm going to get a vintage, fucking, I don't know, whatever, Adidas Gretsch, whatever it is, to make me look as if I enjoy music and I'm surrounding myself with all this. Like, if you didn't know I'm ready to rock out, here are 3 guitars, 3 electrics on a rack, like I'm in the studio with an acoustic. And not only that, I've got an amplifier next to me. So I'm ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I guarantee you there was no cable in that amp I saw.
Nothing.
No lead in it.
No.
There's no. I guarantee you, if you hit the switch on that, it's not. There isn't even a power cable hooked into the back. It's all. But it's so representative of him, which is just a fucking phony. A big fraud, you know what I mean?
Well, you want an analogy. Kiss one of their big things back in the day, and a lot of bands have done this, but they used to go on tour with all these Marshall stacks, but like 90% of them would be clear, like completely empty. They were just there to look as if they had this wall of amplifiers, but there was only one per guitar. It's not like you could plug one guitar into 16 amps and there you go. And it's almost perfect analogy for a band that's completely hollow.
Yeah, AC/DC did that. They still do that.
Yeah.
Because it all just goes through the PA. It goes through those big speakers you see actually hanging up on the side of the stage on the rig.
Sure.
That's where it's all coming out of. It's not coming out of the stage.
No.
But, look, speaking of frauds, I'm going to mention this very briefly because we've discussed it already, right? What I've discovered recently, and there's a guy on YouTube, I forget the name of his account, but if you Google this,
something of Pegasus, Wings of Pegasus, or
Wings
something?
of Pegasus, English guy, British guy. He, what he does is he goes through a lot of music in-depth analysis from a technical kind of point of view a lot of the time. So he has software that he runs audio through, and he's able to see by looking at the waveforms in high res what's really happening in terms of processing. So what he did a few months ago, he figured out that Michael Bublé was performing in Madison Square Garden, and he could see the snapping of notes. And he said, he's using autotune. And then he had another clip where the autotune actually failed, and he sounded like he was underwater. I mean, it was unbelievable, right? So that was the first one. But what he's recently discovered was that Don Henley from the Eagles has been using a backing track for years to sing Desperado and a number of songs. These are the fuckers who are charging, like I mentioned on the last episode, a small fortune for shows. Yep. And you are getting, people who are going there are not getting what they're paying for. They're not getting a live performance. They're getting a backing track. Now, as of this morning or yesterday, another big name I've discovered is Eric Clapton is using auto-tune in his live shows. And it's like I mentioned the last time that, Stevie Nicks is playing here and she sounds like a homeless person, her voice was just like, I guarantee you she's up to those tricks as well. She has to be. She's mid-70s. She can't sing anymore.
No, she can't.
Look, and if people want to go and pay to watch a mime backing track, that's fine, but at least be told. I think there should be some law to say there has to be a disclaimer to say this is not a live performance, just so you know. This is a backing track performance.
Well, that's it. I mean, especially when they're new artists that are better served taking your money and performing live, like, especially live. Yeah. We're talking about big money. We know that the t-shirts cost a lot, but the cost of staging the gig is also a lot as well, depending on who it is. A comedian needs a microphone and a bunch of seats and a hall. That's it. And speakers. Yeah. But I talked about this artist before, Sierra Farrell. Kayla and I just love her to death. And C.A. Thompson as well. She did a cover here of this guy, John Anderson's song called Years. And it was pro shot, but you tell me if you think there's a bit of auto-tune in this girl ever in the future going to happen.
2, 3.
Up and down, there's no
I think you get the hint, but this is just incredible. She's a throwback. I hear when she sings, I hear 100 years ago. I hear every influence, that, but it sounds uniquely hers at the same time.
It's a good example of, it's not just hitting notes is really meaningless to a degree, but it's the quality, it's the tone, it's the quality, it's the phrasing, it's all that, and that all has to be firing. I think we'll see what happens with this in the future. But I think people need to be aware of the frauds out there. Like, say for example, let's look at it this way: if someone like Taylor Swift was doing this, I don't think it would have the same impact, because you're going there not to just, it's a newer contemporary audience. They're going there for the experience and for the show that's put on. It's a visual presentation.
Yeah.
And I don't, but like the problem with a legacy act like the Eagles is that a lot of the people who are going to these shows are not of a generation where people ever did any kind of studio trickery or anything like that. It's all about, remember in the 70s, Queen used to have a thing on their record saying no synthesizers.
No synths, not until the Game, I think.
That's right. Or I think it was Flash Gordon, maybe, or which came first. I think it was the Game, But I think it's going to be something in the future that we need to probably let people know who are buying tickets. And we're spending huge amounts of money. You're really getting ripped off here.
So a band like Bon Jovi, bringing it back down to Howard and Bon Jovi. I mean, Bon Jovi, as much as I can criticize them, they're so earnest about what they do. I can't really go the lengths of criticizing them I can't criticize them the same way I would criticize, let's say, who was it you said was charging? Stevie Nicks was charging a boatload, but so was Springsteen with the last tour. People were complaining about the ticket prices, and he himself signed off and said, look, or his management said, look, if you don't like it, don't fucking pay. And that's pretty much been always the take of the Rolling Stones or whoever. If you're not willing to buy, there's loads of people who will. It's when you can't sell that you start to have to eat those fucking words.
Like Kiss had trouble selling tickets and had to give away a ton of them for free. But you know what's interesting? You just mentioned, right? We're talking about auto-tune. We're talking about Bon Jovi. There was audio that was put out about 6 months ago, maybe I'm going to say a year ago, of Bon Jovi touring live and John Bon Jovi's live performances, and they were absolutely shocking. His vocals couldn't hit any of the notes. Now, the one positive thing about that is that there's no auto tune or backing tracks being used there. That's for sure, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it is an interesting. It's something we've said before about bands like this rock and roll, 80s rock and roll stuff. It's a young man's game in terms of the vocals, because you're hitting those high notes. And when you get into your 60s, I saw Black Sabbath on their last tour, and poor Ozzy, he couldn't sing any of it, but Tony Iommi was spectacular.
Well, that was it. I saw them in 2013 in Tokyo, and the band was what you listened to. And they had Tommy Clufetos was playing drums, not Bill Ward, which I thought was a travesty. But then I remembered, look, he's probably the age where he just can't last an entire concert, and that makes sense for drummers and singers. Guitarists, bassists, they can make it happen. I mean, I saw the Stone Roses. I know you don't care much for them. And that fucking monkey, Ian Brown, he couldn't hit a note. Like he was
one of the worst singers I've ever heard in my life. There's no auto tune being used there either.
No, absolutely not. I mean, the guitarist is what you listen to basically, and then the songs that are so good. But the thing is, so in this day and age, where that's concerned, it is you're going to be in the presence of the artist. That's what you're paying for, a lot of these people. I want the T-shirt. I want to say I was there. I want to film it with my phone that no one's ever going to fucking see except on YouTube. And then guess what? 50,000 other people have the show filmed from their angle. Same exact song, same sound quality, same auto tune that recorded on their phone, their iPhone, your Android, same crap. So that's why over the years I stopped taking video of stuff unless I was meant to do pro video for friends that they wanted stuff recorded for their own purposes to see how they sounded like or whatever, and also just as an experiment, like to try, see if I could capture it properly. And but then that's like a hobby. That's an activity. That's an exercise. But you shouldn't be paying, even $100 and not getting a singing performance out of some of these people.
Yeah, exactly.
Jan required years of pondering to decide if this glorious band that sold over 130 million albums should be inducted. What a tough decision. Gee, I don't know if I should let Bon Jovi in. 130 million albums. That's not such a big deal.
Now, his whole argument, and I remember Benjamin saying this at the old place, his whole argument is because they sold so many records, they should be in there. Well, is it about popularity or is it about inspiration? Which is why they have, people that were destitute. Like Chuck Berry probably didn't have a fucking toilet to piss in, but he had one to film people pissing in when he got inducted. But he was influential to thousands of bands, even if they don't know it. Like if you love Hendrix, you listen to a Hendrix album and an Outtakes album, whatever, you've heard him play fucking Chuck Berry covers.
Yeah, well, you make a point, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Is this based on a quantifiable metric, or is it based on Jan Wenner's opinion, who as we know, he hates women and black people? So is it essentially this guy, this old, shriveled up, has been washed up, backwards thinking guy, right? Who's sitting in his ivory tower like Joaquin Phoenix in Gladiator with a thumb up or down of who gets in? Who like that? So it's preposterous that if it's not based on sales, because it's just the opinion. Like we can all have an opinion, and it is everyone has one. So yeah, that was my question. So it clearly isn't based on sales then.
No, it's his preferences. Like, if, for example, I know you're not a Kiss fan, and I was for a while until, I got fed up with them. But I can name you dozens, almost every grunge band and every band that survived grunge, and even the hair metal bands, even the classical, the good ones, they all were influenced by Kiss on some level. And if you dig deep in Kiss's catalog, they do have a couple songs that are half decent, but if you're going by influence, they've also sold a lot of records. So which is it? Is it influence? Is it, is it the longevity? Is it, is it record sales? It's not. It's Jan Wenner's decision of who's sitting at the cool kids table with him. It's bullshit.
Yeah. Do we have a list of who's in there? How many are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Like how many is it? It's an annual event, I assume.
Yes, and I think
how many go in a year?
378.
So there's 378. I'm going through the list here, and I'm seeing James Brown, Ray Charles, Sam Cooke. Well, they're all great, but I suppose it's not strictly rock and roll then, is it? It's just
give me a letter.
Pop music.
Give me a letter.
L.
Okay, so I was already there. John Landau, who was a producer and a manager, actually. Lead Belly, that makes sense. Zeppelin, Brenda Lee, John Lennon, Jerry Lee Lewis, Link Ray, Little Anthony and the Imperials, LL Cool J. What does he have to fuck? What the fuck does LL Cool J have to do with rock and roll?
Wow.
Darlene Love, Professor Longhair, Love and Spoonful, Leonard Skinner. I mean, some of these you totally get, but Darlene Love.
Oh, wow.
Right. Why does Madonna get in there?
Yeah, but there's a lot of like the Ronettes, Leonard Cohen, Run DMC. Like there's a lot of good bands in here, but it's obviously this is just Jan Wenner's record collection. Is that really what this comes down to? It's just these are the bands that he likes.
The Notorious B.I.G. is in there, for fuck's sake. But I mean, there's some of these. The Johnny Otis is in there. He should be. Dolly Parton. I mean, Charlie Patton. Where's Charlie Pride? I mean, I want to see. Where's what's his name? He died so young. My father-in-law loved him. Put your sweet lips a little closer to the phone. What's his name? God.
I can't remember him. I know the song.
Jim Reeves,
yeah. Well, he did Born Free as well, didn't he?
Yes, I believe so.
Born Free. So I'm looking here. Let's look at 2022.
Okay.
Just pick last year. or 2 years ago. You have Dolly Parton, Eurythmics, and Pat Benatar. So I'm just looking at this going. So Pat Benatar is in there with Eurythmics and Dolly Parton. You would have thought that Eurythmics and Dolly Parton would have been in there sooner, but clearly they can't just have it as a descending order of quality, because then you'll end up with it gets worse every year essentially.
Oh sure.
But what I'm just thinking, looking at this, is like there's no rhyme or reason to this. It's really just Jan Wenner gets to say and he probably gets input from other people, and he just gets to say yay or nay. And
he plays spin the bottle, and suddenly the cramps are in.
He's got input from a few people over the years by the sounds of things, but I don't know. This whole thing.
Third input. Fuck him. And, I mean, he's got input. Well, it's so Rolling Stone. Once I got older and realized there are way better rags out there if you want to read about music. And these days, actually, there's a couple of websites that have. There's at least one website that I'm thinking of that has a compilation of articles from many periodicals over the years that you pay a subscription fee and you can get access to these. They've all been put online. It's sometimes worth it if you're looking for a specific magazine that's long out of print and they finally got everything up there. But Rolling Stone, I have a DVD actually of all the issues that have been scanned up to 2007, but the software is so outdated and you still need a DVD-ROM reader. Or drive to access it, that it's almost not worth having. You'd rather just find the articles online, but unfortunately Rolling Stone requires you to also subscribe to them to be accessing them. So anyway, Give me 1 sec.
Let me give you an idea of what the number 130 million means, and it means a lot. Now, the bubonic plague only killed 50 million people.
Bon Jovi only killed, 5 million brain cells with every musical note. Fuck off.
Bomb only killed 225,000 people. 625,000 people died in the Civil War. Peanuts compared to 130 million Bon Jovi albums. How uplifting is my speech tonight? Anybody want to hear about the AIDS epidemic or?
Like thud. Yeah.
How many
he brings up the record sales, they cheer for that, but all the other references, they're lost on this crowd.
Yeah, he's gone for that kind of slightly shock value of, this is going to be a great riff now, and every time I name a different disease, they're going to, and it's not catching at all. It's not catching, and people are just
Stalin only killed 10 million of his countrymen.
Yeah. How many million women's stomachs have you turned, Howard, since the 1990s? Yeah. That's probably a better statistic.
No kidding. Fuck.
But you see, even with all of this talk of death and destruction, I'm making a point. And my point is that 130 million is ridiculously big. Try to look at it this way. The average amount of sperm in one ejaculation
for fuck's sake,
is only 100 million. Bon Jovi beats sperm, ladies and gentlemen. God bless them all.
And I'm sure he thought about this, like, I'm going to deliver this like fucking Shecky Green, and they're going to be throwing their panties at me. Like, he thought that he's going to be Tom Jones at Las Vegas in '68.
I just love the idea that someone had to type out onto the video prompter or whatever, Bon Jovi beats sperm, ladies and gentlemen. I'd say whoever was typing that up going, Jesus, is he really going to, this is awful.
Well, they had to know in advance they were going to edit it. And when later on, when we play the other clip, you'll hear exactly what he's talking about, because he was given a limit and he admitted, I went 2 minutes over. So whatever, and they honestly give people shitloads of time. One thing from the final broadcast, there's a bunch of awards that they give out before the broadcast that no one knows, and there's like 60 people in there in a place that seats like 500. It's used for best instrumental, things that aren't so kind of sexy, or the biggest awards. It's like when the craft services table wins an Academy Award for best souffle. You don't see that at Oscar night, like the bookie's going, fuck, I missed that one. I thought Coyote versus Acme would have got that for sure, but when it does happen, like the Ramones, I remember when the Ramones got inducted, Dee Dee was welcome back. Like he was there for the thing, but I think he said that when it came the awards themselves, every one of the Ramones got the one that had the other person's name on it.
Oh, man.
A perfect punk rock, kind of ending to, that kind of thing. Because Joey had died and Johnny had died by that point. It was only Dee Dee, I think, left, and Tommy Ramone, I believe. I can't say 100%. I think so.
So are the New York Dolls not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, that is This is ridiculous,
Shocking.
isn't it?
And anybody wants to see a good documentary, check out All Dolled Up, the story about Arthur Kane, Arthur Killer Kane. It's the bassist who became a Mormon, actually, after the band, and cleaned himself up. And there's a scene in it where they do a reunion show at, I don't know, somewhere in London. I can't remember, but Morrissey was the one basically introducing them and championing them. And Bob Geldof's in there being interviewed, Chrissy B. Hind, as my brother calls her. And they're just talking about how influential they were. And they do a little prayer circle, and Arthur leads the prayer. And it's so touching, actually, because he brings up all the musicians that have passed. And it was so amazing that before he passed away, he was able to enjoy this one last time.
Yeah, I saw them around that time supporting Morrissey, and they were brilliant.
Sammy Yaffa was in there. It was a mix of like pros and stuff, and they sounded like Syl Sylvain was still playing great.
Yeah. No, they were really good, and I think at times like that you take things for granted, I think. And within a few years, everything can change, and you suddenly think, "Wow, that was a precious memory." Really, it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And speaking of sperm, the band Queen sold 35 million records. Blondie sold 40 million records, and these guys got into the Hall of Fame, and they didn't have to wait. Jan knew what to do. Let me tell you something. Leonard Cohen used to sit at home beating off at night thinking about selling 3 million albums, let alone 130 million.
The difference is almost everybody that fucking bought a Leonard Cohen album went out and made a record.
Exactly. And can we just think about what he did and try to figure out where's the joke in what he just said?
There's no joke.
He said Leonard Cohen sat at home beating off. What did he say? Like
beating off, hoping to sell 3 million copies of a record or whatever.
So the joke there in Howard's mind is, well, I'm talking about beating off.
Yeah,
that's the joke. I mean, that's the level we're on here. This guy is an idiot.
But I'm also going to reference.
Funny about that.
I'm going to make a Leonard Cohen reference, and pit a a mainstream band against someone who's incredibly influential. Like actually, up until the end was still able to perform. And some of his books, there's a couple of his books that are fantastic reads. Actually, if anybody gets a chance, he did one of a bunch of Psalms. I'm not religious, but it's a book called the Book of Mercy. It was released in 1984. I think it's been reprinted, and it's great. It really is like modern day Psalms for the working man. And it was almost a throwaway back then. That was around the various positions time. And it's great. It's a wonderful collection of bits that he wrote, Psalms. And Bon Jovi, like I said, who's going to tell you, what? When I was growing up, I wanted to fucking be Bon Jovi. No, girls wanted to fuck him. Yeah. Guys wanted to take their girlfriends to Bon Jovi concerts, so after they'd get blowjobs from the girls, But no, they bought them the fucking tour jacket, but no one went there going, God, no self-respecting music fan said, I love Bon Jovi ever.
Yeah. And look, let's be honest here. And I don't want to be a snob or anything about this. I'm not the biggest fan of Leonard Cohen, right? But I do have a huge amount of respect for him. And I do know a lot of his albums. I'm not some sycophant, but someone like him is one of these artists who is often played at weddings, at funerals. His songs resonate so deeply with people, and people get strength from them, and his music enriches people's lives. Living on a Prayer is a song that a drunk slapper sings on the hen night. You know what I mean? It's not something that it has really. And I know they sold more records, but that's the difference between the two. And but Howard doesn't care. It's all about sales, and semen and fucking cream and these awful thoughts that he has. Like, this is so bad so far. Louis C.K. had no hand in this, I can tell you that. This is shocking.
No, unless he was asking for a hand job somewhere else in the back or something. He was asking, Debbie Harry to watch him jerk off.
Do you mind?
Now, I've only just started. Bon Jovi. My friends, these boys are deserving. They are finally getting their due, and it's about time.
And that's the perfect backdrop. Howard right between the crotch of one of the members. You won't get this from the mainstream broadcast, guys. This is like way off in the distance. And
It looks like
actually,
pubic hair. Look, his hair. It's the perfect position for like a really big bush, and his nose is a little micro penis. Look.
if you could put a wig on a dick, it would look like this. Oh, God. Brilliant observation.
I gotta say, what an honor, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What a place, I love it. Yeah. The only place you can see Slim Whitman's underpants, Mariah Carey's tampon, and what about that Ike Turner boxing gloves in the glass case? Did you see that? What a glorious collection of junk we had surrounding us tonight.
Now, no one laughed. No one fucking laughed.
No,
and I'll tell you why. Not because they were like, oh my God, you're addressing someone who's a wife beater or whatever. I think Ike and Tina were both inducted in the Hall of Fame, so it's not that. And then Mariah Carey's tampon. These gutter resonating, quips that he thinks he's Henny Youngman.
Yeah, but this is perfect because it sums up exactly what we've always said about him. He's not witty, and he thinks that just by referring to Mariah Carey's tampon, that's funny because it's outrageous. And this is what he's leaning into. This is why he became a shock jock in the first place, because it's the only thing he had. He's the only thing he was utterly shameless. And he didn't care, so he's having to lean into that now. I think and Ike's boxing gloves, like what a hack.
First of all, it makes no sense.
Something Shuley would say,
A wife beater doesn't wait to put on boxing gloves to beat his wife.
Yeah.
It's like nonsensical.
Yeah, and why would he put them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, they have. I mean, the real Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has all kinds of like drum sets from the past and outfits.
Yes.
If you actually, there's a virtual tour on YouTube. Anybody who wants to see it, and then there's the Hard Rock Cafe, who would. I don't know if they have an affiliation necessarily, but some of those places, they have a rotating collection of things that go from stores to stores and like restaurants to restaurants. The one I saw in Bangkok had like the worst kind of like boy band shit. So there was all like, NSYNC stuff. It would have been like Sam would have been in hog heaven. Britney's Rider. And the 98 degrees set list was in there in the last.
What was Artie's joke about that bad?
I love it. He said if you found out your son told you his favorite band was NSYNC, would you ever stop punching him in the face?
Oh, the other one he said that Jessica Simpson, I'll never forgive her. She's that bitch who split up 98 degrees.
98 degrees, yeah, that was great. You may remember her as like a reality star, but she's always thought to me that cunt, that twat who broke up 98 degrees. That's a joke.
It's an honor to be here tonight for these guys. I've known them since they've started. And aside from the incredible music accomplishments, they are some of the nicest men I ever met. No stupid rock and roll attitude, just humble and gracious. Whenever I would see them over the years, even with multi-platinum success.
I love that somebody was having a conversation over that. Like Saudovace, I couldn't really quite, wasn't really paying attention to that, but you definitely, I'm sorry guys. I wanted this, like I said, instead of the real thing. But this is another aspect of the induction. They're 5 of the nicest guys I ever met. Well, Jesus, fucking send them right through.
Yeah, they deserve it. I can't help but notice here, there is not only is there no reaction really to what he's saying, unless he says Bon Jovi.
Yes.
But there's this kind of undercurrent of conversation. People are sitting around talking
because they're bored shitless.
Yeah. Like this is not going well here.
Right. Do you remember when Dominic gave that wedding speech, that engagement speech?
Yeah, it's great. I love that.
We'll have to cover that one day.
We'll have to cover that. I love it.
And then Sal does his.
We have to cover that.
Asshole.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. When he starts talking about his sister in 1987, my sister.
when I heard him do Lesbian Dilate, and I knew that was going to be, that was it for radio.
Yeah. He revolutionized radio.
Yeah. And they were all getting douche chills from it. I loved it.
It was like throwing drinks into plastic glasses and booing, and it's great.
Yeah.
They each had a smile on their face in a welcoming way, an appreciation for their craft and their fans.
Oh my God, Richie.
In addition to music, their charity work feeding the homeless, helping the American Red Cross, lending a hand to the Special Olympics. That's a rare humility, and I love them for it. Great group, an iconic band. First of all, we've got John Bon Jovi, a great frontman extraordinaire.
A great frontman extraordinaire. Excuse me?
What?
He's not even at the top of the shittiest list of fucking, bad frontmen. I mean, Bon Jovi, like, they were okay. I know I'm going to upset some of our hardcore listeners from New Jersey, but I don't believe I will, actually. I mean, unless you like Bon Jovi, ironically, everybody's got the Crossroads greatest hits or some bullshit. Yeah. But that band is not more than the sum of their parts. They are what they are as a band. That's it. And when he did that that Young Guns 2 soundtrack, it was essentially a solo record, and it got like panned. He's going to bring it up as one of their songs, but it isn't. And if someone who knew the band wouldn't include it.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. He doesn't pay attention.
No, of course not.
But John Bon, you would never. No one ever says, "Oh, Bon Jovi, they're a great live band." No one ever, they're not ever mentioned in that category. Right. Bruce Springsteen, whether you like him or not, is regarded in that because he puts on this really long show, and there's a lot of like crowd work, and and he does have that great catalog of songs. Mm-hmm. People like Freddie Mercury, all these people, they would all have a reputation for being stellar live performers. No one ever thinks, "Oh wow, John Bon Jovi, he really owns the stage." Right? No, they're famous for the hits.
Wait, you know what? Yeah, how many? Blue Saraceno said in Guitar Magazine that growing up he always wanted to be Richie Sambora.
But even if you think, Fillmore, like even Van Halen in the early days would have had a reputation. And when you look at the footage, like David Lee Roth doing the splits off the riser, the drum riser, and all these things. I remember I said to my wife one time, I said, we're talking about Van Halen. And I said, look, they started in 77, 76. They were doing this kind of rock thing, the hair rock 10 years before it became this big mainstream radio thing. And she said, well, now I know who to blame for all that shit music. Yeah. But no, it's like, at least there was a bit of originality there. You can't, like there was with Bon Jovi, there's hits. Look, they've radio hits and they're very well produced and you put together hooks in their songs and all that. That's it with Bon Jovi. That's isn't this kind of, they weren't influential. No. They weren't original. They weren't a great live act. So
they're like the Skechers of groups, like a shiny box, little silver, decals on it, whatever. But you can listen to Van Halen 1, that first album, and it sounds like it was released. It sounds like it could have been released. You can't put a year on it. It's timeless.
Yeah, and it has a great kind of rawness to it. I think it was Ted Templeman. I think
Ted Templeman.
Yeah. It sounds great still. It really does.
And I think it was that and Nevermind the Bollocks released the same year, 1977, and each having, a drastic, there were two barnstormer albums that just became super influential for hundreds of bands, that just decided, this is what we want to sound like now. And oh, fuck. Even now, to this day, they remastered the Van Halen stuff. And I'm like, you didn't need to remaster anything.
No, you don't really. No, you really don't. But the guitar tone at the start of Nevermind the Bollocks, that sound, it does sound, it's almost like an engine. That does make the hair stand on the back of my neck, I have to say. And it does make you want to just go to a bar and have a few drinks. It just has that energizing effect on me.
And the football choruses. And when they did you remember No One Is Innocent, the one they did with Ronnie Biggs?
Yeah. I haven't heard that in a long time now. But
Oh, I love it. Like this, what was the Ronnie Biggs was doing time until he done a month. Now he says he's seen the light and he so calls himself a punk. I love it. The lyrics are great. He goes, what was it? He goes, God save politicians, God save our friends the pigs, God save Idi Amin, and God save Ronald Biggs. And then later, Steve Jones and Paul Cook did The Professionals. They put that together, and those are some great songs. And people think that, without John Lydon, they couldn't do anything. No, drugs got in the way, but those Professional songs are fantastic. They're Sex Pistols songs waiting to become Sex Pistols songs.
Yeah, like there was a lot of bands around that time that they were, as soon as they arrived, they were gone. I think the Ruts were another band around then.
Yep.
Oh, they had a great song. Again, it's Babylon's Burning, I think it's called, and it had this riff at the start of it. But again, it had this amazing raw guitar sound about it. That is just, when you think back, it's just so important. Like the song is obviously important, but God, the sound can make such a difference to make it just stand out from the pack.
Totally. Whereas with Bon Jovi, I mean, even amongst the hair bands, they didn't really stand out. They sold more records because of a certain, the image, of course, and the songwriting, very pap. But when you think of bands of that era, you immediately go to Motley Crue, Poison, and then later on, like Cinderella, Guns N' Roses. But then Guns N' Roses, not too many bands sounded like Guns N' Roses at those early days. And Guns N' Roses early on, they just seemed a little more obsessed into getting into rehab. But that Appetite for Destruction, that album, I don't know if it holds up, but it didn't sound like a hair metal band necessarily.
No, I think it does hold up. I think it's a great album, to be honest. I listened to it a few years ago and I just thought, God, there's just some great songs here. I think that the difference between Guns N' Roses, and I do remember clearly at the time, Guns N' Roses had a much more harder edge to them in terms of there was a lot of references to pornography, there was a lot of references to drugs. There was, even that song Rocket Queen, there's like Axl Rose is having an orgasm on it and all that. I remember as an 8 or 9 year old when that came out, it's kind of shocking, whereas with Bon Jovi, there were more of the teenage girls were into John Bon Jovi, and it was a totally different thing,
Yep. There's no guy would be caught dead with a fucking slippery when wet binder or some shit, stickers. No way.
Very definition of a rock star. Yes, a man who single-handedly destroyed most of the ozone layer in the 80s with Aquanet hairspray. And he's still working on it. The masterful and powerful drums of Tico Torres. David Bryan, a true showman on keyboard.
If he didn't have that written in front of him, he wouldn't know who the fuck the drummer was.
No, he wouldn't.
There's no way. He'd be going, the masterful drumming of Jack Bruce, because that's the only reference or drummer he knows.
Like, this is just...
Fucking hell. He's going to name the roadies soon.
Yeah. And it's clearly... He has no clue. Like, does anyone know who the drummer of Bon Jovi is? Like, can anyone even name any, like, particularly standout bits of drumming from Bon Jovi? Like, this is the problem. This is the problem we have here, is that the only people that, that are really well known here are Richie Sambora and John Bon Jovi.
That's right.
Because they don't have that kind of fan base where people are like, oh, have you heard that? The bass playing on such a Bon Jovi song is spectacular. Like, they're not that type of band.
Right.
So when you,
Well, I mean, like, think of a band like Rush. Okay, I'm not a Rush fan. I mean, I like a couple of their songs, but I'm not one of those mavens that decides, oh God, they're the be all and end all. No, and prog rock and all that shit. No, but they were the guitarist Alex Lifeson. He had to be a little, I don't know, disturbed, but disappointed that his contribution to the band was completely overlooked in the shadow of Geddy Lee and Neil Peart, who who sort of owned like guitar and drum magazine, or sorry, bass and drum magazines for years and decades, actually, because they were such, they were considered such musicians. And he's a good musician too, but no one held him in as high, I guess, reverence as the other two in the band. But you never heard him complain about it because, you know, why ruin a good thing? But in Bon Jovi's band, I mean, if you replaced Bon Jovi's sideman with other people, would anybody notice?
Oh, of course not. Yeah. And it's interesting with Rush. I do like Rush. In fact, I went to see them live, but I went to see them live and they played just kept fucking playing.
Yeah.
And I was 2.5 hours into it, I'm looking at my watch going, I'm getting out of here. I can't handle this anymore. Rush are a bit like, they're a strong flavor. So you just want it, maybe they're a bit like, Rush remind me of something like a Christmas pudding, a really rich, that you only really want it once a year, and it's you don't want it for the rest of the year. Like, and I can respect them, but this whole thing about the drummer, what's his name, Neil Peart, I think he's a great drummer, but he's a great drummer in that I think John Bonham was just as good. But if you really want to see really good musicianship, if that's what you're really after, go look at any Frank Zappa album from the 70s and 80s, and you will find like Terry Bozzio, and
before that, Chad
Vinnie
Wackerman.
Colaiuta, Vinnie Colaiuta, all these people. So it is it's a strange phenomenon, the whole who's the best guitar player when you're talking about just guys within this certain genre of music, because I'll never forget, it's like Stern, this idiot we're looking at here, he said to Sting, he said, is John Entwistle the greatest bass player of all time? And, you know, Sting was embarrassed, you know.
Yeah.
He said, no, it's Jaco Pastorius. And he was incredible, like really incredible.
Well, certainly, but I mean, there's a narrow focus some people have, and it's not something that you have to. I mean, to me, if you're going best drummers, for example, there's whatever list you're putting together, Tony Williams gets in there.
Yes.
What's the fella from Mahavishnu, Billy Cobham? He's in there as well.
Cobham, yeah.
Will Calhoun, all three. Will Calhoun from Living Colour, phenomenal drummer. Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction, phenomenal, like powerhouse drummers. But then, you know, you might put Karen Carpenter in there.
Yeah, I saw Billy Cobham live once in Holland in 2001. He had that album, Funky Tide of Sings. Was not him, I think, Billy Cobham, but he was brilliant. It was just, I think he died soon after. I remember after seeing, I saw Joe Zawnul from Weather Report. He was there. I think he died a few years later. But yeah, it was just before 9/11, I remember. But yeah, all these guys are, if you're really into, you know, and if we're talking here about the Hall of Fame, if you're looking at in some way of measuring, or if you're really interested in who is technically the best, you're not going to find it in bands
Bon Jovi.
like Bon Jovi, and you're not going to find it in, you know, because it's because people who are really accomplished are not going to be satisfied playing, you know, a 4/4 beat with 3 chords and you know, it's just it's not the type of music that the people like that gravitate towards. So yeah.
No, well, it's you know, in terms of this whole the conceit of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, they inducted people I just mentioned before, LL Cool J, for fuck's sake. Like, who's next? Like, any disco art? Like, is Sylvester getting in there? Is, you know, fucking is what's his name? Is, you know, Crocus getting in there anytime soon? Or Bullet Boys or 38 Special? No, of course not, because it's this you know, I guess fag party club that Jan Wenner is part of.
Chumbawamba.
Yeah. Oh God, what were the ones? Oh, the Proclaimers. Oh, fucking hell. Like, you know, if I never, you know, there's some of those bands with those one-hit wonders that if I ever met the actual people who made some of these one hits, I might actually punch him in the face. Like, if I met Darius Rucker, who recently got busted for some like E-ring that he was in charge of, his making his own Darius Rucker ecstasy, I'd probably tell him to fuck off, because I got so fed up hearing Hootie and the Blowfish that one year on the radio.
Well, look, like, well, I think you and Sam mentioned a song on one of the shows recently, which was that
Butterfly.
Come my lady, come my baby, whatever that. Yeah, that's one
Crazy
of the
Town.
worst songs. Yeah, Crazy Town, right? But there's another one that when I hear, I like. There's a song that when I hear, if there was a sharp implement near me, like I'd drive a screwdriver into my temple if I had to listen to it. And it's that song, give me, Santana, give me your heart, make it real. Oh, let's forget it.
Rob Thomas and Santana.
Oh, that song, dude, drives me, like, I can't handle it. I just cannot handle it.
You couldn't escape it.
You could not escape it. It was a bit like Madonna, Ray of Light, or, you know, there was these songs that for months, or do you remember like Bryan Adams, Everything I Do It For You in 1991? You could not get away from that fucking song.
Well, remember when my wife moved to Asia the first time, Titanic had just come out, and it was like it ran in theaters in Japan and Korea and probably China for like a year. A year it ran. You know, there were other films that came in, but that was like a permanent fixture. And there were things like the Titanic. You know, all of a sudden, stores started naming themselves after things of the movie. Like there was the Titanic auto body shop, which I really would have thought twice about that one. That's like, you know, why don't you call your that's like calling a bathhouse, you know, a spy cam or something. You know, I don't know, like it was, she said if she met Celine Dion, she'd probably punch her in the face because that song was inescapable. Everybody. And so when Christmas time comes around, also last Christmas, when we want to talk about fucking songs that knock you, like you would just want to pour a liquid acid drip in your fucking, like an acid drip in your ears, that Paul McCartney one, Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Christmas songs generally, but that one drives me up the wall.
The problem I'm in a bind here because I have young kids. Yeah, and they hear those songs. But now I do like the fact that they know the old ones rather than, because there's just nothing around anymore. I think that's a separate conversation. I don't want to go into that now. Maybe that's a conversation for around Christmas time. But
sure,
I think definitely Paul McCartney. There was the only way for a lot of these guys to try and get hits in the 80s was to try the Christmas one. But to be fair, and I know you don't like Christmas songs, I think that my favorite Christmas song is probably the Slade one. I think it's an absolute banger. I love hearing it every year. But
well, that's one you're just not going to. I mean, Fairy Tale of New York is overdone, unfortunately, and not just because Shane MacGowan passed away, but there are a number of them, like Otis Redding, "Merry Christmas, Baby" is a fucking great song. James Brown has one called "Soulful Christmas Tree," which is great, the Crack Band. But then the Who off the Tommy album, "Christmas."
That's right. There's that one. I think when you stand back from all of it, you'll often find yourself going backwards and saying, well, probably Nat King Cole, the Christmas song, is probably the most iconic one of all. And his voice is just like, it's just so soothing, and, you know, it's warm and lovely. He had a great tone to his voice.
I'm not sure why, but I associate the Annie Lennox song "Why" with Christmas, because I think I don't know if it came out late in the year, but I remember distinctly walking downtown in my hometown, and the snow was just gorgeous, like, you know, one of those light snow days. And somebody was playing it, like it was part of a department store or something was playing it, and the speakers were outside. And I just remember I associate it with that, even though it isn't.
No, it was released in 16th of March, 92, but I remember that time very well. That was around because it was
Christmas when I heard it, and then I just associated with that. Yeah. But either way, that one, the other one was that from that last Queen album after Freddie died, "Made in Heaven." They had one called "A Winter's Tale."
Yeah, I remember that one well. That was a good one, actually. Yeah, that's not a bad one. Yeah,
no, it isn't, and it's you can tell Freddie's voice is not quite up to snuff, but it's still, and it's not Christmas related, winter related, but to me, like 6 1/2 dozen or the other.
Yeah, it's there's references to snow and winter and everything, so it works.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll continue, guys. Sorry for this, and this is probably going to take about 6 episodes if we don't curtail some of our stuff. But that's my fault because I allow it to go on, and I think some of you guys might enjoy some of the music shit. But we'll continue.
Alec John Such, what a great bass player! And by the name, John Such, one of the best names in rock and roll. In fact, I've often said the band should have been called John Such, but we know whose ego could not deal with that. Let's be honest. It wasn't going to happen. And of course, the extraordinary talents of their current bassist, the great Hugh McDonald, who was with John back in the days of Runaway.
People are like, is that the janitor? What?
Yeah, like what is this?
Like,
This is not entertaining.
I'm trying to think that even this guy, what's his name, Hugh McDonald. I'm thinking his family doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
Not to be a star fucker, guys, but you know what I mean. Like, it's not, and it's nothing. There's nothing, no disrespect for those guys. I mean, they made a living with a band. You know, there's session guys or people that have played with big name artists for a long time, and they've made their bones as so and so's backup band. Until he dumped them, Billy Joel's backup band were soldiers for him. And there's a big acrimonious thing. Like he stopped using them for tours and even for albums and stuff. And they all kind of talk shit about him. It's another reason to hate Billy Joel.
Yeah, it was the drummer's Liberty DeVito had a big falling out with him and played with him on every single record up until, I don't know, the 90s. Because he hasn't made anything in years. But Billy Joel's another guy who, when you look at him, and especially when you look at those interviews and then you hear stories, it's a bit like Elton John. It's very hard to think that he's anything other than a shithead, you know? There's just too much evidence out there.
It's incontrovertible proof.
Yeah, it kind of is.
He's a dick. Well, I mean, some of those fucking those songs. I mean, and I think there's back in the day there wouldn't have been anybody I knew that didn't have at least one copy of his greatest hits, because he was a singles guy. I know people love albums and stuff, but he was so on the radio so much, him and Phil Collins, Filthy Phil. So you couldn't escape Billy Joel. You couldn't escape Michael Jackson, obviously. But guys like that, like him and Billy Joel, and they were just omnipresent.
Yeah, I think with Phil, at least with Phil Collins, you had a much more diverse, wider discography with him. Mm-hmm. You had the stuff with Genesis there was some great records with when the first few, the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Yeah. But also even he did like Brand X. He produced some great albums, John Martin and Phil. Whereas with Billy Joel, it's tell her about it, you know, and there's
it's still rock and roll to me.
It's the type of music that you always hear covered badly in like a cruise ship setting, or you know, it's like I don't know. I grew up listening to a lot of that stuff, so I think I would be fine never hearing Uptown Girl again for the rest of my life.
Oh.
But like,
back in the radio, like the change radio, you remember the push buttons in the old cars, like, you know, when you had to change the station, you had pre-programmed buttons. And so whenever Billy Joel came on, my brother and I, the running joke was we'd had to see who was going to be the first one to just jump to the dash and press the button first for any station, anything. If it was country, it was better than Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Christy Brinkley, We Speak Your Name. You should have left them. And what's her name? The one that did the cookbooks? That fucking idiot. God.
I forget
Katie
now.
Lee. Katie
Lee. Yeah, Katie Lee.
You guys did it right. Like, Katie Lee got away with the money, not the kid. Christy Brinkley had the ugly child and whatever fucking divorce settlement, and don't have to look at that goblin ever again. And whoever he's with now, good. It's like Don Rickles said to Clint Eastwood, good luck.
Yeah, that's great.
His wife.
He toured with Elton John in the 90s.
Yes.
Face to Face tour.
Yeah.
And God, they're two of the biggest fuckers, you know, I would say. If you look at can you imagine trying to manage the two of them on a tour? Like, you've got absolutely colossal egos there, and that's just unbelievable, I'd say, trying to manage them.
Should we play that Dice meeting Billy Joel backstage and attributing the wrong song to him on purpose just to fuck with him? Let me see if I can find it. Okay.
He trolled him. That's all intentional. Dice is great at doing that type of thing.
Okay, guys, we're gonna throw this on. It's Dice was fucking with Billy Joel. He got backstage and he decided he's gonna have some fun with him. And so Len sent me this and I was dying laughing. This is what you do. It's on YouTube, but he's got his official thing on YouTube, but you can get him on Instagram, and that's in TikTok. That's where he shines.
Yeah. I don't believe it. Billy, how you doing? This is so give me a hug. Give me a hug. This is so, because I never got to see you in concert. You know what I mean? So this is like a thrill to me. And like, I only need 3 songs from you tonight. I know you're gonna do a lot, but like Just the Way We Was. That's one of them, right? And the Uptown Girl thing, and oh, how we you know, the rain. We made it through the rain that day. No what?
That ain't me.
What do you mean no what?
That's not my stuff.
We made it through.
No, that's Barry Manilow.
No, I'm just saying.
I know, you're just saying, but it ain't me.
No, I'm just gonna go sit and wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No, thanks for your time.
Okay.
You don't do that ever, like for no reason. Like, all right.
It's so good, isn't it?
There's an old Dice was notorious for this. He was on Cohen in '95, right? He was promoting. I'm not sure what he was, maybe '94. Conan's early days, and you could tell because Conan was so fucking nervous. You could see it in his eyes and his actions. And he was next to him was a guy who had just won the Super Bowl with whatever team. There was a black guy, and so he didn't guess before Dice. So Dice went on and he goes, you know, maybe you could show Dice some of your tackles, you know, and later on he goes, yeah, we could work with that. Yeah. I see, you're a good guy. You're a good player. He goes, what group are you with again? He's a musical artist or something.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, we're gonna knock it off there for now. We're gonna go into more of this next time, and I'm gonna trim some of the fat. We're gonna get through all of that, and then the 18 minutes of his King Baby's little whining bitchy thing that like. What, did you ever see The Insider? With the Michael Mann film, The Insider.
Yeah, love that film.
Great. With
what about the cigarettes? What about this? It had the
Al
Aussie actor in
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, yeah. There's 1999. I was working in a video shop when that came out. I remember getting in. Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's fantastic. One of my favorites.
I haven't seen it in years, but.
And Mike Wallace at one point he gets angry at someone because they edited his broadcast, and he goes, "Who told you had the requisite fingers to trim my broadcast?" Similar to what Howard does.
Well, it's like Pacino in Glengarry Glen Ross. Whoever told you could work with men?
That's such a great fucking film.
Yeah.
And last but not least, my friend Richie Sambora. Oh yeah. One of the most underrated guitar players in the world, a masterful songwriter, and you know this is true, the man with the biggest penis in Bon Jovi. How do I know that? The boys had a measuring contest early on. Richie won. But I don't want to get into the anaconda penis discussion. This isn't the right time for that. We're gonna.
Why bring it up then, you fucking doorknob?
Well, again, the material is horrible. Well, anaconda penis, big penis. I mean, is that it?
Yeah,
this much. Is not. Can you imagine this guy on a Dean Martin roast? It's just the worst material he has. He definitely wrote it himself. He didn't get any help here, I think.
No, I mean, like at fucking Milton Berle's funeral, there were dick jokes, but Milton Berle was infamous for having a huge, massive dick. You know, like that's where it, totally, like the roasters would say something like, the eulogy, sorry, the memorial for Milton will be held on Tuesday. The memorial for his dick will be held on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday.
But I think that's the reason why Howard loved him so much, or was at least obsessed with Milton Berle.
Completely, yeah.
Be inducting Richie in the Penis Hall of Fame next week. Hope you all come. Few realize that Mr. Richie Sambora single-handedly considered it his mission to help women who could not get dates to feel better about themselves.
Like no one's
Over the years,
applauding.
he helped women like Heather Locklear, Cher, Denise Richards, and countless others across the world. Thank you, Richie. I always said, it's a good thing.
It's dead. It's dead in there. You
Totally
can hear the
dead.
din. It's a complete crickets. It's worse than when Scott went, "Hello, Cleveland."
Yeah, this reminds me of the situation on one of those Comedy Central roasts. Do you remember that guy from Jersey Shore did an appearance?
Oh.
He's bombing here, Howard. This is a real. I mean, there's no question about it.
Oh yeah.
That Richie had a thing for pretty blondes with blue eyes and a nice ass. That's what motivated him to team up with John in the first place and create a fantastic songwriting team. God bless. All right, now, let's get down to business. These boys have worked their asses off. They are cowboys. On a steel horse they rode. Yes, they are wanted. Wanted dead or alive. Dead or alive. It's all the same.
No, you can't stand
Only the names will change. Yes, every day it seems we're wasting away. Another place where the faces are so cold.
So he had to do this. Like he was going to plan to do this anyway. But I think, like, when you craft a speech, if you're going to write it down, or if you just have an idea of 2 or 3 things you want to mention, which is always easy, is keep it short and sweet and simple, stupid.
Yes.
Though if you have these bullet points that you want to get to, the reason why you fashion the speech around those points is because you think that's going to save me if there is a lull or no one's paying attention. That's going to be the big, like, whoo, that's going to be the gut punch. That's going to make them laugh.
Yeah.
That's going to make them cry, bawl, whatever, or go, oh, whatever reactions. It's something extreme. Instead, he's met with people looking for, an extra drink. Can I go get a hot dog or something, would be better than this.
I think if in his head, I'm trying to think of, because it's very hard to sometimes get in this guy's head, but is this something he's did on the fly, or is this something in his head beforehand? He thought, it'd be really funny because everyone loves when I sing, jokingly, when I do my musical, when I pretend I'm singing from a musical, everyone loves that bit. So
right,
maybe I'll do that here. But what he's probably didn't count for is the fact that this is there's no atmosphere at all, so no one's joining in. No one listens to Stern. They don't, like, no one in the audience. I say only maybe 5% of the audience there, or 2 to 3 or 4% listen to him on any regular basis by this stage. If that, and I'd say even fewer in that room cared about him being there or that he was doing the speech. Yeah, like he's yesterday's man. In every sense of the word. So I'm not sure, because ultimately, like you say, if you're doing a speech, this is something that you would throw in if you've got them eating out of your hand and you're thinking this is going to go over well. But if you're working on the bare bones of, like, okay, no one's really paying attention, stick to the hits and get out of there. Yes. But it's clearly this isn't what he's doing.
He's doing the B side. The C side. So imagine if some band went on tour and played nothing but fucking outtakes and covers.
Oh yeah.
And then Radiohead for the longest time wouldn't play Creep. And then finally they started putting it back in because they were fed up with it. But James Brown, if you went to see James Brown, he gave you the hits without question.
Well, famously, Cat Stevens played in Dublin a few years ago.
How was it?
Well, I was there, but I didn't hear this. But a friend of mine was there, and a different part of the arena. And what Cat Stevens, it was a brilliant show, right? Because he's got just some just incredible songs, right? Some of the best songs ever written in terms of contemporary pop music or whatever. So halfway through the show, they went into this 20-minute contemporary dance, religious kind of thing, right? And it just went on and on and on. And a friend of mine told me that where he was, some guy who's had a few drinks behind him roared up at the stage, "Play Peace Train, you bollocks!" And I thought, well, that's kind of perfect, isn't it? Because if you're Cat Stevens and you're doing a show in front of 16,000 people, you should probably just stick to the well-known stuff. And I know he's kind of a born again, not Christian, but Muslim, of the Muslim faith. No one's really interested in, regardless of the religion, nobody's interested in some 20-minute, Jazz Odyssey meets some kind of religious festival experience.
It's a rare artist who can do covers, let's say, or traditional stuff instead of their hits and get an audience to eat out of their hands. Elvis used to be able to do it all the time, and like I said before in a previous episode, he his 70s kind of set lists, I wasn't one for them. I mean, he really tried to go as contemporary as possible, but then he threw at the gospel stuff. I would have stuck for that. But then he sped through his hits, like the 50s stuff. He used to do a medley, and I hated medleys. Medleys to me meant you're fed up with your own songs and you don't want to play them, so you're going through them as fast as possible.
Yes, that's exactly it.
You know what I mean? So, whereas when a funk band, yeah, you could get snippets of this. Prince could go into something from something, seg into Superstition while he's doing, I don't know, Strange Relationship or something. And then you wouldn't mind that at all. Anyway, well, we're going back to music, guys. But bottom line is you've got to stage presence, like stagecraft. You look at the Live Aid set that Queen did. You look at like I said, that Paris Olympia show that James Brown did. You look at the Tammy show. You want to talk about how to keep an audience on their toes. This is not the way to do it.
Jesus Christ! You can tell why this is. I'm sure this was edited out. I know this is the unabridged, but I'm sure this was edited out. This little singing bit here.
I think they did, and like I said, the full version is on YouTube. And if you guys want to hear it from this, it's like 7 minutes 22 seconds in. Go to the one that they put out, and I guarantee you they added laughs to make it seem like it was happening and people were entertained. But the reason why they got pissed off was because they cut out like 2 or 3 minutes, 3 minutes easy, and it was mostly the cock and penis stuff, the singing stuff. Because they're thinking, what the fuck is this? It's useless. It's pointless.
Oh, it's awful. Imagine that's your joke, Fillmore. So I got this great joke about Richie Sambora. Okay, great. What is it? I'm going to say Richie Sambora is in the Penis Hall of Fame.
Yep.
That's it. That's the joke.
Yep.
For fuck's sake. I mean, this is really bad material.
I drive all night just to get back home. I'm a cowboy. On a steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive. I said I'm wanted, dead or alive. Sometimes I sleep. Sometimes it's not for days. The people I meet always go their separate ways.
It must have like pained. He must easily have a teleprompter or something there, because there's no way this doofus would remember all those lyrics. He can't remember how to say fucking Chef Boyardee.
And look the way he's standing. He looks like he's waiting for a bus. He's got his hands in his pockets. He's such an awful performer in every sense, in terms of his wit, his delivery, his everything, charm. He's got nothing.
No, and what? So like they sang along with him. You could hear it. You could definitely hear them. He's like singing along. But that's, I think, for a lot of them, like just let me break myself out of the stupor and sing along with him. Let's make it karaoke. But I dare you to listen to any one of these other speeches given by other people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and find one person who sang instead of giving like a tribute to whatever the band was.
Well, let's be honest. The reason why the audience are singing along, it's a bit like when you start singing "Happy Birthday" to somebody. Yeah, it's you have to join in, either to as respect to the person who's sung for, or to save the embarrassment of the idiot who's up there singing it in the first place. It's to just try to diffuse the awkwardness. Yes. And it's the audience are giving Howard at the very least what he's demanding from them. Here he got a smattering of applause for that performance there. Like, he's getting minimum feedback, I think, here, about as little as you can hope for.
In his mind, I think he heard like, this is like the crowd asking for an encore, the third encore that night, and they want me to, they want more. Like, clearly they're eating, they eat what I'm serving them, and they're enjoying it so much.
Because he doesn't leave the house. Because he doesn't do anything, he can't read an audience. He can't read the feedback. He doesn't know. He doesn't, because all he hears is his own voice in his headphones every day. So he doesn't know what's good or bad. You know what I mean? Here, he can't feel it.
Just the other day, did you know, I saw it on Reddit. I haven't tested it because I completely forgot that the Stern Show had an Instagram account. But apparently they have blocked all comments from the Instagram stuff on the show, just like on Twitter. for random people.
It doesn't surprise me.
No, it doesn't. I'm surprised they didn't do it back when they did the Twitter edict came down. But people were making fun of it. But again, I don't think people our age really give a fuck about Instagram that much anyway. At any rate, I thought that was interesting because, like whatever minimal amount of hits he gets on Instagram, but clearly what he's getting is mostly negative. Otherwise, there's no reason for something like that to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes you tell the day by the bottle that you drink. At times when you're all alone, all you do is think, I'm a cowboy.
Still going.
Steel horse I ride. I'm wanted, dead or alive. Eat shit, Bob Dylan. Music.
Oh man, eat shit, Bob Dylan. What's Bob Dylan got to do with him making a fool of himself?
He has had a thing up his ass for anybody who won't do his show, and Bob Dylan's one of those people.
Why the hell would Bob? Can you imagine Bob Dylan going on his show?
I don't actually think Bob Dylan stands for many interviews these days.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. And why should he? I mean, I really do think to a large degree, if someone like Bob Dylan or someone who has a big catalog and they've got lyrics that aren't necessarily easy to, open to interpretation, it doesn't help to just go in and have an idiot like this, Howard, try to dissect things in the way that a 12-year-old would, because that's all his brain can cope with. And why would he want to go on there? So I'm sure Howard would love it because that's all he has now. He can't, as Riley would say, put oars on machines and laugh at disabled people anymore. So he has to, his angle is, I'm a credible interviewer.
Yeah, completely. Guys, we're gonna wrap this one up right here. We hope you've enjoyed this part one. We're gonna finish up a part two in short order, but we're gonna make sure we get the starting of another mini saga recording soon. But any shout outs you'd like to give before we I know you mentioned you wanted to say a shout out to Raven for coming back.
Yes, because I forgot to the last time we recorded. It's great to hear her voice back. I think you kind of sometimes you forget how a familiar voice, how you miss it, and how when it comes back, it's like it never went away. It's a strange thing, but I think a lot of people echo that sentiment. It's great to hear her back, and this is someone who has an original Riley Martin piss jug, don't forget, which is something that I've always been very jealous of, and she actually, I think she said to me one time that she did have, as Riley would say, telepathic intercourse or something like that, with Riley. I think she was in contact with Riley. So to me, that's like seeing Elvis live or something, He's 10 years dead now. God, Lord rest him. Yeah, it's great to have Raven back. It's great to have Raven back. It really is.
Yes, it was. I was so happy when she decided, and originally I thought she was joking, and I mentioned it in the episode, and she said, no, I think I really am ready to come back. And I go, well, the door's always open for you. There's no two ways about it. Guys, we hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we will be back with more stuff on the next one. So take care from both of us.
I don't believe that I have to pay taxes on that. I have.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't believe that. Capone didn't believe it. He ended up in Alcatraz.
They take him to jail for tax fraud.
Yeah, see?
He's a midget Al Capone.
What the hell are they doing?
I'm Little Capone. Little Scarface.
Hey, was it your birthday the other day?
What's that?
I heard it was your birthday the other day. Happy birthday.
No.
No?
March 11th. What I said when I called in this morning was on Sunday I went back to the same strip club I went to on my birthday.
Oh, my God. Whatever, man.
Well, you got to realize his birthday is important because his life expectancy was only a few years. All right.
March 11th is your birthday?
Yes.
Your parents refer to that as 311, I bet?
311.
Yeah, that's your waist size.
That's your height, dickhead.